Coming up this week, Lordstown Motors takes their endurance pickup truck to the Baja 250. The Tesla Cybertruck pays a visit to the Texas Gigafactory. Mercedes shows us what they think a luxury EV should be, and more. Well, hello friends, and welcome to episode 60 of the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and if this is your first time here and you want to keep up with the latest EV news, information, and get answers to your questions about electric vehicles, start now by subscribing and clicking on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. We'll kick things off this week with a story out of Austin, Texas, where Elon Musk and the Tesla Cybertruck prototype paid a visit to the Gigafactory, which will be the home of Tesla's Cybertruck production. Twitter was alight this week as many profiles shared images and video of the stainless steel-bodied truck driving outside the factory. From what I can tell, it does look like it's the same prototype that we've seen before a few times without any tweaks. It is certainly a sight to behold, and I'm curious what the workers who had an up-close and personal look with the truck had to think about it. The design of the Cybertruck as a whole has certainly been controversial, but to be honest, just like a regular pickup truck, it looks rather at home in the dirt. The first trucks are expected to be produced later this year once the Gigafactory in Austin, Texas is complete. Next, I did share a bit about the Mercedes EQS a few weeks ago, but finally the wait for the official reveal is over. This week, we got to see the EQS in all its glory. This flagship EV from the German brand needed to be perfect, and it has definitely hit its marks. Quoting CNBC, Mercedes-Benz believes its new EQS sedan will refine the all-electric luxury vehicle segment as it competes against Tesla and a growing number of emerging startups and legacy automakers. Personally, I think that this is going to compete more with the Lucid Air than it will with the Model S from Tesla, but certainly that remains to be seen. The 2022 Mercedes-Benz EQS, unveiled Thursday, marks a new era for the German automaker as it pivots towards electric vehicles. The car will be part of its large S-Class car family when it does arrive here in the US later this fall. The interior of the vehicle looks like a cockpit out of a futuristic spacecraft more than it does a car. It has screens across nearly the entire dashboard of the vehicle. In total, it features 3 screens under a single 56-inch curved glass surface, including a passenger screen that will not be visible to the driver. The exterior of the EQS features a similar design to its traditional S-Class siblings, but a bit more aggressive regarding the front of the vehicle. A special Edition 1 unveiled by the company features a two-tone black and silver paint job across the entire car. Mercedes did not release pricing for the EQS, however, industry experts expect it to easily top $100,000. The starting price for the 2021 Mercedes-Benz S-Class ranges between $94,000 and $160,000, with the Maybach S models reaching upwards of $200,000. This car is the first EV on a new vehicle platform for Mercedes-Benz. It also features a fresh generation of batteries with a significantly higher energy density, which allows for more range. The powertrain, quoting Autoblog, including its suggested range of 478 miles for both the EQS 450 Plus and the EQS 580, was detailed in early April. The single-motor 450 Plus packs 329 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque, which is good enough for a 0-60 sprint in 5.5 seconds, according to Mercedes-Benz. The range figures are under the WLTP cycle in Europe, so under the EPA test cycle, it should be a little bit less than that, but honestly, it's safe to expect it will top 400 miles at least. Moving up to the dual-motor all-wheel drive EQS 580 nets you 516 horsepower and 1,611 pound-feet of torque, along with a 0-60 time of 4.1 seconds. Both models are limited to a top speed of 130 miles an hour. For tech, the vehicle features a suite of safety and convenience features, including a new driver assist system that can control the speed and braking of the vehicle, as well as assist in other functions such as switching lanes or keeping the car in its lane. The system is more driver-controlled than other systems, say from Tesla, GM, Nissan, or Ford. The EQS will also include an available augmented reality system, including a heads-up display that projects three-dimensional graphics such as arrows onto the screen to show drivers where to go. And I'll be completely honest with you, I have never been a Mercedes kind of guy. They've just all been kind of boring, in my opinion. But this car, I can't help but drool a little bit when I'm looking at it. Granted, it's going to be well outside my price range. I will not be able to afford this car for likely a very long time. However, for those that are in the market for a luxury EV, they may want to take a look at the EQS before buying the top spec Tesla Model S, Lucid Air, or Porsche Taycan. Next, some more good news. The legal battle between SK Innovation and LG Chem is finally over. Quoting Bloomberg, the two South Korean electric vehicle battery makers reached a last-minute settlement in a bitter U.S. trade dispute, sparing President Joe Biden from choosing between undermining intellectual property rights or dealing a potentially toxic blow to his climate agenda. SK Innovation Company agreed to pay $1.8 billion to LG Energy Solution, a unit of LG Chem, according to a statement from the two companies. The payment is divided equally in cash and royalties, they said. According to the joint statement, the two companies will, quote, work to help the development of EV battery industry in South Korea and the U.S. through heavy competition and friendly cooperation. In particular, we will work together to strengthen the battery network and environmentally friendly policy that the Biden administration is pursuing. End quote. The settlement will avert a 10-year import ban on SK Innovation's batteries into the U.S., and it ends the 2-year dispute between the two companies. The import ban threatened to complicate the rollout of Ford's new F-150 electric pickup truck and VW's U.S.-made ID.4. Both were due to begin production next year, with EV batteries assembled at an SK Innovation plant in politically important Georgia. So I am so happy to hear that these guys resolved things and that there will be no issue for Volkswagen and Ford to get the batteries they need for their upcoming vehicles. This is great news. And to the F-150 electric, that is one I am very, very excited to see as quickly as possible. Okay, on to the headline story. Lordstown Motors has officially entered the history books this weekend as their race-prepped beta of the endurance pickup truck started the Score International San Felipe 250 desert race. Spoiler alert, they didn't finish the race, but I'll get more to that in a bit. The endurance pickup, sporting the number E414, was one of 2 electric trucks that entered the race this year. The other was entered by an independent team that ran a Toyota powered by the powertrain from a Nissan Leaf. Before the race, Lordstown Motors CEO Steve Burns said, quote, "We feel that it is quite significant milestone for the electric vehicle community that an electric pickup truck can compete in an environment as demanding as Baja California. Our goal is to be the first EV to ever complete the San Felipe 250, and with superior traction, weight balance, and advanced software control of our hub motor-based endurance, we are confident that we will do just that," end quote. The daunting 250-mile race starts in San Felipe, Baja California, and traverses terrain including sand, rock, high-elevation mountains, and low-speed ravines. Temperatures vary widely from desert heat to mountain cold, which is a challenge to batteries that are sensitive to extreme conditions. Lordstown hopes that the Baja experience will toughen the Endurance's image as it targets the commercial truck fleet market. Well, it may have toughened the image, it may not. It depends on kind of how you look at things. So here's what happened. The flags went up, the lights turned green, and the endurance pickup truck eased its way across the starting line. There has been some criticism that they didn't punch it like many of the other teams that were there, but consider for a minute why they were there. And I'll touch on this a few times, I think. Lordstown was not there to race, per se. They were there because they wanted to test the different components of the truck in an extreme climate and get feedback and data on the design and strength of the vehicle. So they did manage to travel 40 miles into the desert before, well, there are mixed reports. In fact, there were many rumors floating around. To follow the race, they had an online live tracker with basically moving vehicles on it, so you could follow along with any one of the vehicles that had entered the race. And at about the 40-mile marker, the Lordstown truck stopped. and it sat there for a while, and then it traveled over to the east to a highway and sat there for hours. They did post a few videos showing that the endurance truck was charging, but for 4 hours? I still have questions about this, and I'm not sure I'm going to get answers to it, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find the answers, although I will be looking for them. So once that seemed to be complete and back on its way, the driver piloted the endurance truck crossing over one portion of the track that they had been on, which ran north-south. So they were going east, from east to west, westerly direction. The track was north-south. They crossed over the track perpendicular to it and then kept going, almost like they were going over across the desert towards where the 100-mile marker was, cutting the course by nearly 60 miles. And then nearing this point, the truck once again stopped, did a U-turn, and pointed itself back towards the correct portion of the track before, when they got there, turning north, which is the wrong way on the course, traveling back towards the start. And eventually the tracker of the Endurance showed that it had returned to the highway back to the east and was making its way along the highway back to the start of the race in San Felipe. Likely at that point, they had already decided to end their race weekend. And it was shortly after this that Lordstown did put out a statement on their social media accounts. They said, quote, "What a ride we've had getting to the Score International San Felipe 250. The Endurance's hub motors, battery pack, and software performed very well today, and everything we did and experienced in Mexico has provided us with valuable insights into how the Endurance's technology performed and responded to the demanding and treacherous conditions. We are stopping here and taking our incredible learnings back to Lordstown. Thank you to everyone at Lordstown Motors, our partner Brethel Industries, and Elphi Propulsion Technologies, and all of our champions. Your hard work, dedication, and passion for the Endurance is the reason we made it to Mexico, and the reason we will keep going as we continue into our beta builds ahead of start of production in September. The lessons learned in the desert will become part of the Endurance's DNA and help us to meet the rigorous performance expectations and requirements of our customers." End quote. Now, you can find any number of reasons to be critical of Lordstown Motors for their failure to finish the race. You can even make jokes about the truck needing to charge after only 40 miles, and believe me, from what I've seen, many people have. But I think that is all very short-sighted. Lordstown put the Endurance out there to do something that I don't see any other manufacturer doing, and it was a big risk. Would the story have been better if they finished? Sure, absolutely, no doubt about that. But think about the great data and experience that they've gained by even showing up. And I think there is a lot to be said for that, and they deserve credit for even trying. The next story comes from The Verge, and they say that Audi's new Q4 e-tron is Audi's best shot at selling a lot of EVs. Audi is taking a wider aim at the growing market for electric vehicles with two new compact EVs, the Q4 e-tron and the Q4 Sportback e-tron. Revealed on Wednesday and due out later this year, the two electric SUVs are far more affordable than the flagship e-tron, but also don't skimp on things like range and futuristic tech. The new electric SUVs also represent a strategic shift of sorts because they are the first models Audi will build on the modular electric platform designed by parent company Volkswagen. The Volkswagen MEB platform is powering everything, from the entire Volkswagen ID lineup of electric cars and SUVs to EVs from sub-brands like Skoda and Seat, and even a European-focused SUV from Ford that's part of an alliance they created in 2019. The new Q4 e-tron will start at €41,900 and the Q4 Sportback e-tron at $43,900 when they go on sale in Germany in June, with sales spreading wider into Europe after that and hopefully here to the US before the end of the year. And that timing may just be perfect. The original e-tron and its own Sportback variant were struggling mightily near the end of last year here in the US, but sales have shot up dramatically despite the higher price tag. President Biden is making a big push to encourage electric vehicles, including potentially extending or expanding the $7,500 federal tax credit. The base models are built on a 55 kilowatt-hour version of the MEB battery pack, and Audi says they'll be able to get 212 miles and 217 miles respectively on a full charge. While that's a healthy chunk of range for the size of the battery pack, those estimates are based on the less stringent European WLTP test cycle, meaning their EPA range estimates will likely be a bit lower. Buyers who want to take their Q4 e-tron farther or drive longer between charges will have to pony up for one of the more expensive configurations, all of which are built on an 82 kilowatt-hour battery pack. The mid-range Q4 e-tron will travel the farthest, offering 323 miles of WLTP range. However, there is no mid-range Sportback. Then there's the top-of-the-line Q4 e-tron and SportTrack e-tron, which can respectively travel 303 miles and 309 miles on a full charge. The Volkswagen ID.4 also uses an 82 kilowatt-hour battery and even has the same amount of modules, 12, in its pack, and it just got rated for 260 miles by the EPA. So it begs the question, what makes this Audi different? I'd be interested to see a side-by-side comparison once we get EPA estimates for the Q4 e-tron. Audi didn't reveal US pricing, and it will be a while before we get an official EPA estimate for each model, but it does look like there's more value in the new Q4 EVs as far as range goes when compared to the regular e-tron. The original e-tron starts at $65,900 and currently gets an EPA 222 miles from its 95 kilowatt-hour battery, though that's after Audi decided to increase the usable energy from 83.6 kilowatt hours to 86.5 kilowatt hours for this year's model. The Q4 is likely to start at a lower price point and at the very least will be around 50 to 60% more efficient with its energy. One of the reasons the top models don't get quite as much out of that larger battery pack as the mid-range Q4 e-tron is that they come with all-wheel drive powered by a pair of electric motors, one on each axle. This setup makes those expensive models the quickest, but that extra weight will certainly have an effect. Audi says that they'll make the run from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, which is 62 miles an hour, in 6.2 seconds, which is definitely slower than some of Audi's competition. And while the starting price is lower, buyers will have to pay extra if they want the most fanciful tech features that Audi is promising in the new Q4 EVs. One of the top examples is an augmented reality heads-up display system that Audi first showed off in March, which has a larger viewing area and more advanced and animated overlays than the typically static options found on many modern cars, including navigation markers that float on the road ahead of the Q4. Which is a similar feature to what I was talking about with the Mercedes EQS just a little bit ago. As far as autonomous driving features, Audi has, for now, abandoned plans to roll out a hands-free driving feature like GM's Super Cruise, Ford's Blue Cruise, or Tesla's Autopilot, but the Q4 e-trons will have a suite of optional driver assistance features that leverage 3 radar sensors, 8 ultrasonic sensors, and 5 cameras. Audi found success with the original e-tron, especially outside of the US, despite its high price tag and unremarkable range. The company delivered nearly 50,000 e-trons and Sportback e-trons in 2020, making it the second best-selling EV in the larger Volkswagen Group stable last year behind the far cheaper ID.3. But the Q4 e-tron and Q4 Sportback e-tron are the German automaker's best chance yet at going truly big in the EV space. By leveraging Volkswagen's more efficient and more cost-effective MEB platform, Audi is ready to make a far more compelling pitch with these new EVs, one that will look all the more attractive as governments around the world continue to emphasize and incentivize a consumer shift to electric vehicles. Audi may still be far behind Tesla when it comes to total EV sales, but Audi's not in bad shape to capitalize on the rise of electric vehicles considering its role at the heart of the Dieselgate scandal just a few years ago. So definitely looking forward to some more Audis to take a look at and review and get my hands on. I'm excited about these. I do think for Volkswagen as a total group, they're really coming together with their EV plans. The ID.4 is perfect for those types of buyers. I've said that before, and I think the Q4 will definitely fit along the same line as the buyers that want the ID.4 with a little bit more luxury and tech. The last news story I have for you this week, on the off chance that you are in the market for an all-electric semi-truck, Freightliner's all-electric e-Cascadia and e-M2 are now available for order. The company's first all-electric trucks are the longest-range commercial battery electric vehicles already in consumer hands in North America. Revealed as a proof of concept in 2018 and then swiftly progressing to a demonstration fleet with trucking customers running real freight in the real world, Daimler Trucks of North America, DTNA, Senior Vice President of On-Highway Sales and Marketing, Richard Howard, said with the opening of the eCascadia and eM2's order books, Freightliner and DTNA expect to start production late next year. Okay, so that's all I have for you with the news this week. Let's move on to our weekly Q&A. The weekly Q&A is brought to you by Charged Future EV Consultancy. If somebody you know is interested in EV or installing EV charging at a business, reach out to Daria and he'll help determine the best path forward. Mention that you heard about Charged Future here on this podcast for a 10% discount on any build services. The initial consultation, though, is free, so head over to chargedfuture.com to get started. Last week's question was, what EV do you own and what do you like about it most? And I'll be honest, a big reason why I wanted to ask this specific question, aside from getting more conversations going, was to help non-EV owners realize what's so great about EVs, and what better way to do that than by hearing it straight from existing owners. So, to help all the non-EV owners hear about this, yeah, you guessed it, go ahead and share this with somebody that doesn't own an EV, because these answers are great. Andrew Goldberger says, I own an e-Golf and I love its LED bottom daytime running lights and one-pedal driving. Julian Brown has a Tesla and says range and the supercharger network are what they love best. Rajiv Narayan has a 2017 Chevy Bolt, and he really likes the quick acceleration, relatively trouble-free nature, and how much money he saves on fuel, and that he can recharge it with his solar panels. Couldn't pick just one thing, could you, Rajiv? That's understandable. Most answers actually had multiple things they liked. So, not the one thing you like the most. Henry Rogers has a 2016 Spark EV like I do. He says the efficiency is great, easily getting over 6 miles per kilowatt hour in warm weather, minimum maintenance requirements. Bob Mann has a 2015 Chevy Spark EV saying it's peppy. Walt Rogers owns a Chevy Bolt EV since 2017 and loves the low maintenance requirements and no gas or no oil. The range is quite good as well, getting over 200 miles at only 88% of charge. Aaron Such loves his C-Max Energy, using electric for most of 95% of his trips, loving that very little of the fuel dollars are going to the petroleum industry or the Saudis. Shane Corneliuson has a 2020 Chevy Bolt, and he really likes the smooth acceleration, savings on fuel, the quietness, zippiness, and the best thing is the regen paddle and 1-foot driving. Sky George Paxold has a Chevy Bolt, and the best thing is the realization that it still has a sporting component to the way it drives. David Moody and his Kia Niro EV loves the multi-level adjustable regen and auto regen, roomy, lots of cargo passenger space, 250 plus mile range, very underrated EV, and an excellent predecessor to the upcoming Kia EV6, and then later added, and efficiency. Evan Quimby has a Chevy Bolt saying surprisingly roomy, it's very peppy, easy to park, pretty much love everything about it. Barry Smith in his Hyundai Kona gets 415 kilometers of range and likes filling up at home. Scott Johnson has a smart electric drive saying it's the perfect city car and you can park it anywhere. Susan Riblet has a Tesla Model Y, loves the updates, meaning that it keeps getting better. K. Chris Maxwell has 3 EVs. Energica SS9 Plus, the best touring-capable electric motorcycle on the market. An Audi e-tron, which has a fantastic tow head with cooled seats and nonchalant appearance. The Smart Electric Cabrio, the most charged up top-down fun you can have in the USA. I like the way you put that. Paul Sargent has a Model X P90D and likes the Falcon doors and speed. I bet. Jeffrey C. Jacobs in his CO2-free Tesla P3D or Performance Model 3. Charles Jaretta, Nissan Leaf, and now as Chevy Bolt. In both cases, he enjoys the quiet of the ride, the instant torque and responsiveness of the electric motor, and the fact that 0 emissions come out of the car. Monica Lewis loves her Nissan Leaf and saying that she loves the satellite radio the most. Responses on Instagram, and I don't have names for these, just usernames, but user by the name of No ID Recluse has HD Livewire, which is the all-electric Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and loves the performance and instant torque. User by the name of Kilowatt Showers has a 2020 Tesla Model 3 and a 2015 Nissan Leaf. Loves the Model 3 for its battery management and the charging network. Love the Leaf because they bought it used for cheap, charges fast, and is not flashy. It's the perfect EV for around town. Blazin' the Nation has a Chevy Spark EV, small, quiet, park it anywhere, and very, very unassuming. Haha. Everybody thinks I'm old because of the veteran tags until that instant torque kicks in. Hummer next. And lastly, a user by the name 208 EV. Hi, I own a 2016 Spark EV. It's like driving an electric go-kart. I love the instant acceleration, 0 to 50 quickness, quick steering, and efficiency. My average over 14,000 miles is 5 miles per kilowatt hour. Thank you so much for submitting your answers. I think the wide variety of vehicles and the things that we love, although the one constant it would be seems to be the immediate acceleration, instant torque. Yeah, you can't not love that, really. That's something that if an EV is missing that, then is it really for us? I say that jokingly, of course. They have their place too. But thank you so much for submitting all of those great responses. The question I have for you all this week is another easy one. If you could give a ride in your EV to any one person on this planet, who would it be and why? So submit your answers via email to hello@ev-resource.com, or honestly, because nobody does that, just respond to the social media posts and I'll read them out on next week's podcast. So that is your show for this week. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Share this with your friends, anybody that you think would be interested in electric vehicles. I do want to shout out to our Patreon executive producers, Rajiv Narayan and Greg Fuller, and James Hart supports us at the producer level. Patreon is a place where people can financially contribute to support EV Resource with the magazine and the podcast. And if you are willing and able to throw a little something to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/EV Resource. I invite your feedback via email to hello@ev-resource.com. You can always leave a comment on the YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe so that you'll get all the future shows delivered to you automatically. If you want to listen to any of the previous podcast shows, you can do that on the webpage under the podcast section and on many of the major podcast platforms. Thank you once again for being with me, and I'll catch you next week.